Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 92.
Woo!
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard Chris Saturn.
Whoa!
I almost said my own name wrong that time.
That's
It's
good.
It's getting worse.
Yeah.
I think every episode, I'm just gonna have a little tiny stroke right in the middle of the intro there, and just. Anyway, Saturn. I
Yeah.
want you to draw a name out of that there hat, because
Oh.
every week we give away a videoed game to one of our wonderful patrons. They are people who support us and get wonderful goodies like our spin-off show Classic Corner over at patreon.com/Retro Warriors. This week we're giving away a copy of Resident Evil 4, which we decided before the show is indeed retro now because it's a million billion years old like we are.
Yeah. When you said videoed game, it just reminded me of the Seth MacFarlane movie, A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah.
When they're talking about the wrapped candies.
Anyway, who's our winner for this week?
So yeah, a copy of Resident Evil 4 for Steam is going to Logan Sharp.
Logan! Hey, we know Logan.
Hey.
We were on his
We were.
podcast for a little bit.
Not that long ago.
Logan, I'm going to send you a copy of Resident Evil 4, so please check your Patreon direct
I'm sorry.
messages.
We'll be sending you a copy of the 4th Resident of Evil Creek game.
Yeah, of course.
The Resident of Evil Creek is my favorite misattribution ever. That's so great.
Housekeeping this week, our written content is by you.
Oh,
You did a wonderful
yes.
write-up for Wonder Boy, The Dragon's Trap, which just came out on April 18th.
Oh, man.
And you were just like losing your shit over this game. So everyone,
I'm
please,
loving it.
please go to retrowarriors.net and check that out there. We are able to make written content with the support of our patrons. So thank you to those people once again. Anyway,
And
week...
if you don't get a chance to read it, just buy the game. Buy it on every platform you have. It's so great.
My week has been pretty uneventful. I played more RuneScape. I think I've settled into a decent groove with it. I play it a little bit every night. I do a couple quests and do my little thing, and I log off, and it's a little ritual I'm creating for myself. But I had an old person moment during Easter.
Oh.
So we had a very big Easter party, friends and family, and everybody, well, really just family.
Right.
It's a couple friends that have children that wanted to hunt Easter eggs showed up.
Sure.
But family came over, and there were a couple of young boys. I mean, less than 10, older than 5, less than 10, maybe like 8 or 9 years old. You know, old enough that they enjoy video games.
Yeah.
This whole notepad thing is a bad idea. I'm just throwing shit all over the floor. Anyway.
good.
They were running around our house, and they eventually just discovered upstairs the game room.
Yeah.
And they were awestruck.
Yeah.
And I saw them coming down the stairs like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I was like, y'all can go play games if you want. And they were like, really? And they run upstairs, and you know, it I don't know if you've had these moments happen with like your game collection, whenever like a young person discovers it and they're all excited to play your games, and it makes you feel really proud and
Right.
excited. And you're like, this is why I do it. This right here.
Yeah.
And they come upstairs, and they grab the Wii U gamepad and they want to play Wii U. And so I'm like, well, do you know how the system works and everything? Because I was like, you just want to do the games yourself and do it all? And they're like, no. So I'm going through my list of games. I'm like, I got Mario Kart, Super Mario Land. I've got Bayonetta 2. I've got, I'm
Call
just,
of Duty.
just going through games. And they go, oh, you got Black Ops 2? Oh man, I want to play Black Ops 2. Let's play Black Ops 2. This game is so cool. And I was like, you sure you don't want to play like Metal Slug or like
Right.
Final Fantasy 6
Yeah.
or something? Because I've got those too. And
Yeah.
I mean, no. I got Turtles in Time. No, Black Ops. No, okay, we'll play Black
Yeah.
Ops. That's fine.
Yeah. I was fixing my parents' 360 that I had given them. I had won it in a raffle. I had won this second model 360 and given it to my parents so that they would have a Netflix machine and something for my nephew to play when he's over there.
Right.
And
And something to play Blue Dragon on.
yeah, because that's going to happen. My nephew, who is 17 now, he's almost an adult, which is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
But so I went over there and I was fixing it because they had me set up parental controls on it back when I first set it up over there for them.
Right.
And they all forgot the password.
Of course.
So
as you do.
I had to contact Microsoft support and get the parental controls wiped off of there with the weird arcane button combination that refreshes everything.
There's a button combo for
Yeah,
it? That's
you have
crazy.
to go into the system menu
Yeah.
and then into the about page that tells you what version of the firmware you're running.
Mhm.
Then if you hold certain buttons, it'll trigger without showing anything on the screen
Mhm.
that you can then put in a button combination that will reset the system back to factory default
Mhm.
and wipe all the parental controls in the process.
Well, that is
It is weird.
Wow, made you feel like a wizard.
Right. So I do all that. I get it back up and running. And he's like, oh, I don't have any of my M-rated games here to test it with because my
Right.
nephew is there. And I'm like, well, that's okay. I'll just log into my account and try some of my M-rated games. I'll just download something, which I didn't because their network is terrible. But, I started the process and he was like, cool, let's see what games you have. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, I get to share this
Right,
with
it's a moment.
my nephew.
Yeah.
And I'm looking through it and he's like, your games are stupid. And I'm like, what? And he's like, what is Radiant Silver Gun? I'm like, you shut your mouth.
And that's when my nephew died.
And he's looking through and he's like, I don't even think you have any M-rated games. And I'm looking through like, surely I do. I'm like, yeah, see, I've got Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil Code Veronica. And he's like, what is that? Right, of course.
So it was exactly that. It was that moment where you're like proud and excited.
Right.
You're like someone else that's excited about games, and they're like, "You got blops? You got blops too?"
Yeah.
Oh, you're one of those kind of people.
He was like, at home I've got Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty and Minecraft. And I'm like, Minecraft is not M-rated. Where did we even get there? And he's like, no, that's just the only games I have.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not gonna pretend I don't enjoy myself some Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto,
sure.
but man, if I was a kid like that and I walked into a game room like this, I'd be like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been like, put in whatever shitty game is cool whenever I was a kid.
Right.
Madden, I don't know.
Yeah.
Bubsy 2. Put in Bubsy 2.
No one has ever said put in Bubsy 2.
So, the only other thing I did this week is I finally, after living here for, it's been over 2 months now.
Yeah.
I'm finally done moving. I got my Neo Geo in the house.
Oh, nice.
It is brought in from the garage. It rained so hard that the garage flooded into some boxes of comics and stuff. And it missed the Neo Geo by mere feet. And so I was like, it's coming in the house.
Yeah.
So it is now in our spare bedroom because there's no way in fuck it's coming up these stairs.
Yeah,
it's,
good lord,
so.
no. Unless you could take it apart and bring it up in pieces.
Yeah, I'll just construct a new one up here using that one as a guide, and it will never leave up here. So it is now in the house, and I'm very happy about that. It's
Nice.
it was sad seeing it in the garage every time I open the garage to take the 4-wheeler out, because that's how I take the trash can to the road. Is I bungee cord it to a 4-wheeler and drag it.
See, in our house, the garage is one of the safest places because we live on such a steep incline that our driveway is practically a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
So the odds of water getting into our garage are nearly impossible. If I were to pour water on the ground in my garage, it would just flow out to the street immediately.
I was already a little worried about humidity, but then after it flooded in there, I was like, now it is going to be super humid. It's going to corrode some shit. So I got to get it out of here.
Were the comics okay?
No, they were there. I haven't even gotten in the boxes. They're not mine. They're my brother's. So whatever. But
sucks.
They were right by the door, and it flooded halfway up 2 of the boxes, 2 full long boxes packed to the brim. And
that's rough.
He goes, how far up did it go? And I go, about halfway. And he goes, well, they're bagged and boarded. And I was like, yeah, but you got to get them all out and clean them now, because when it gets hot, it's going to get humid and it's going to ruin all of them. And he was like, yeah, whatever. So I think it's just gonna let him get fucked.
That sucks.
At this point, he has such a massive comic collection. It's like 12 or 13 long boxes, which maybe it's not massive, but that's very large. That's thousands of
Sizable.
comics. Yeah. And he wants to get rid of them. But he grew up he was born in 85, so he grew up mostly in the 90s. That's when he was buying comics. 90s comics aren't worth dick.
Yeah, because everybody was buying them.
And you can't sell them.
Because that was when everybody was making a big deal about the collectability of comics, because that's when the earliest like Supermans and Batmans and stuff started selling at ludicrous prices.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, oh, I have to collect shit. And that's when I remember when X-Men 1 came out, the second series of X-Men, not Uncanny X-Men, but the other one, when that one came out, everybody flipped out. They're like, oh, it's going to be worth a fortune. Everybody has to get it.
That was one of the most printed comics of
because
ever.
everyone had it.
I own it. Yeah. And I was like, what, 2 when it came out? You know, like I own a copy.
Yeah, I remember.
You live in the suburbs, you were issued it.
Yeah. I remember going to the comic store and there was a line for it. But it wasn't like a line like, oh, I got to make sure I get a copy. Like, everyone was going to get a copy.
Right.
Everyone was, and there would be some left.
It was like the line at Walmart to buy groceries.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's excited. You're just like, I'm going to get my thing and go home.
I got to get X-Men 1. Like, me too. It
was the one with the big fold-out cover, right?
Yeah, well, there was like 7 different prints of it.
Yeah.
There was one that was just a generic one, and then there was one with like a holofoil cover or something. I'm not a comic expert. I'm sure people are going to tell me I'm super wrong about all this. But
actually, Sabretooth wasn't on the second.
Yeah. I think there was like 3 or 4 different variant
Robbie
covers.
knows X-Men comics. He'll write in and tell us.
I'm sure he can tell me much more than I could. But I remember it was a big deal at the time. Like I was the lame kid because I was the Excalibur collector at the time. But yeah, I remember that being a thing, but everyone bought comics then.
Right.
So everyone bought comics.
Yeah.
Then.
I was really into Evil Ernie comics for a while. That was my thing. I have an extensive collection of Evil Ernie comics. It's a weird, strange chapter in my life. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, that's my week. That's really all I did. Easter
I had a bunch
was
of the Nintendo comic system for a while there.
There was a Nintendo comic system?
Yeah, it was printed by Valiant. There was...
Valiant came back, right?
Seriously?
They came, 2012, 2013. They're back now.
Why?
You can go buy, like, what do they have? Like, Bloodshot comics and Ninjak, and that's Valiant, right? Yeah.
Probably.
And, I gotta forget. I just remember Bloodshot and Ninjak.
The ones that I remember that were part of the Nintendo comic system, because everything had to be Nintendo Blank System.
Right.
Because of the NES.
Entertainment System.
Yeah.
The naming scheme that went to no other console
that
they ever made.
Well, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is Super Nintendo Entertainment. It's even SNES. I never even think about that.
It was Super NES.
No one ever called it Super Nintendo Entertainment System, though.
Yeah, they called it Super Nintendo or Super NES or SNES.
Yeah.
Or if you're outside of the U.S., SNES.
Which is so weird.
Anyway. So, yeah, because there was also the Nintendo Serial System.
Yeah.
But the Nintendo Comic System, you had Super Mario Adventures, you had The Legend of Zelda, and you had Captain N the Game Master. That was your 3 that I remember.
Were they garbage?
Well, Captain N was a little bit edgier than the cartoon. Super Mario was pretty much exactly the cartoon. Same with Zelda. It was exactly the cartoon, but more of it.
Yeah.
Captain N was slightly edgier, but they didn't have the rights to Mega Man.
Judging by the cartoon, they already didn't have the rights to Mega Man. He was green and said Mega all the time.
And I think they didn't have the rights to Simon Belmont either.
He was pretty much a toad in the cartoon.
So in the cartoon, they replaced Mega Man with Samus.
You mean the comic?
Yeah, sorry. In the comic. So instead of Mega Man, there was Samus. So it was Kevin and Kid Icarus instead of Pit.
They didn't call him Pit?
No, they didn't in the cartoon either. They always called him Kid Icarus. They would call him Kid.
I thought they called him Pit in the cartoon.
No, they never called him Pit.
I'm going to have to go watch that again tonight.
He was Kid Icarus.
Oh, God.
A cuss. And
Mega.
That's a mega pickle, Captain N.
We need to do an episode on Captain N.
We do.
It's not that long, and it's so shitty.
I love that series. Anyway, so in the comic, they had this extra conflict of Samus and Lana competing for Kevin's affection.
Oh, God.
And so, like, Samus would do something badass, and Kevin would be like, wow, did you see Samus just screw attack into those 12 monsters? And Lana would be like, I'm cool too. And he'd be like, yeah, princess.
I'll screw attack into your wang.
Yeah, it was ludicrous and ridiculous, but,
That's dumb as hell.
It was a comic of the late 80s.
Anyway, I know you had a lot from this week.
Not really.
Well, I mean, you had Wonder Boy that you want to talk about extensively.
So
I guess is what I meant.
when I was waiting for Wonder Boy to come out, because I was super anxious about
April 18th was a big day because it was Wonder Boy and it was also a Disney Afternoon collection.
Afternoon, right.
Yeah.
But while waiting for that, I went ahead and I had my gaming ADD jumping back and forth between things, trying to find something to occupy me.
Right.
I was mostly playing Binding of Isaac some more, but then I sat down with my PS4 because my hard drive died.
So sad.
Which I was able to recover PT, and that's what's important.
Right.
But
see, it scares me because I don't have PlayStation Plus and I don't have cloud saves. I'm like, God, what if mine dies?
Yeah.
I'd be fucked out of just 4 hours of Final Fantasy 15. I don't guess I'd really lose anything if mine died.
I have a couple of 100-hour saves in 15.
Yeah.
And some other games too that
I'd lose like 10 hours of Yakuza 0.
Yeah.
That'd be a bummer.
So fortunately, everything was backed up, so it restored all that.
Mm-hmm.
And everything but PT I could just re-download.
Right.
It's not an issue. PT I was able to re-download using the proxy. There's a fan hack that was able to do that. So I put a solid state in there now, and I attached a USB 3 external drive as well, and have everything installed to that. So
now, can you just use the USB drive as a backup?
You can use it as your primary storage.
Oh yeah.
The recent update allows that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So I've done that. So now I have like 2 terabytes free on my PS4 instead of having to constantly delete and juggle things like I was doing before.
Right.
But so I did that, and I started to reinstall everything. And I was like, well, I want to make sure that everything's working with the new drive, so I want to play something. And so I played through the DLC for FF15.
Right.
And then I was just staring at it, and I was like, well, what do I want to play? And I played some Spelunky, and that was fun. Like, I hadn't played it before.
Which
so
I'm going to forget about in the news segment, but a really good documentary just came out about that.
Oh, yeah?
Nice. I watched. I didn't finish it. I watched a little bit of it.
Was it about Spelunky or Spelunker? Because I constantly get those backwards.
Which is the newer game.
Yes, it's the indie game.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And I can't remember why I didn't finish it. So the baby woke up or something. I forget. But it's enjoyable. I found it through Tiny Cartridge. I don't know where it's actually posted at. Somewhere on YouTube.
But yeah, I had always just thought that Spelunky and Spelunker were the same until I started playing it.
I did for years.
And
I thought it was I even lumped La Mulana in there.
Yeah.
Because they're all just like guys dressed in brown going into ruins.
Dungeons,
and you're like, oh, all right, I get it. It's all like the same lineage or whatever. And no, they have nothing to do with all three of them are unique.
Apparently the Spelunker series may or may not be owned by Square Enix now, because they just put one out on the Switch in Japan.
Weird.
So
just
anyway,
weird.
Yeah. But yeah, so I played some of that, and that was fun. And but I had just played so much of Binding of Isaac that I was not in the mood for another randomly generated game.
Right.
I'd had enough of that. So I sat down and tried out the PS4 port of FF7 again, and I had forgotten how competent of a port it is.
It's a great port.
It is, and most importantly, fast forward.
Yep.
And
cheats.
One
button
being able
click
to just
cheats.
Just blatantly cheat at battles.
I thought that was finally going to be the version of the game that I completed, and it was not.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
I have finished FF7 so many times over the years.
I need to.
It's not even in my top 5 Final Fantasy games.
I've
still
seen it
finished.
I've been around it when people have finished it. I've played the majority of the game. I don't. It's so boring to me.
It is a weird port though, because they cleaned up the graphics so that it presents in 1080, but it's still super low poly count.
Right.
So it just reminds you of how garbage it looks.
It's like just looking at the exact same game, but like through an HD lens.
Yeah.
It's all. It's like when emulators run Super Mario 64 at 1080p, and you're like, this should not be.
Right.
It's like some like weird MC Escher painting. Then you're like, I don't understand what's happening.
It's like when I finally got my new glasses and could see everything for the first time.
Now.
Yeah,
trees have leaves.
But yeah, but then Wonder Boy came out.
Yeah,
and I have been balls deep in Wonder Boy since then.
Yep.
And Wonder Girl. And
don't say that you've been balls deep in Wonder. Maybe don't say either of them. Just don't.
Let's jump back behind that.
Saturn
analogy.
has never been balls deep in any boys. I want to make that clear. Wonder or otherwise,
that's
it's
true.
not a thing we want to put out there.
But oh my god, it's such a good remake. It is absolutely astounding because it's still the same original game and it still has the same original mechanics,
right?
The same physics, but it plays in full 16:9 and in HD. And I love that you can switch between original and new graphics anytime.
Right.
You just click a button and the screen just paints right to left or left to right, depending on which direction you're going. And so you can just keep moving and keep attacking and keep platforming while the graphics change in the background. And it's phenomenal.
That's crazy. I haven't picked it up yet for 2 reasons. One, I'm buying Puyo Tetris and Mario in less than 10 days.
Sure.
And that's a lot of money. And .emu may or may not be sending me a Switch code. Apparently, and you were saying that Switch codes are kind of hard to come by, which I didn't think was a thing. So I should know by Friday if they're going to be able to get me a copy.
All the reviews that I've seen online, even from like the Nintendo websites, like I'm not going to name any of them just because I can't remember which ones I did see it on. I don't want to misattribute. But all the websites that I normally see reviewing Nintendo games have been reviewing the PS4 version and saying,
Weird.
well, that's the code that was made available.
Right.
So
now I explicitly I talked to their PR lady and I explicitly was like, hey, I want a Switch version.
Yeah.
And she didn't say anything about not getting it for the Switch,
Right.
but she was like, I'll have to see. If you don't get it by Friday, then you didn't make the cut, which
right.
for people that don't know how review codes work, you get on the list, but if you're a small outlet like we are, you get on the bottom of the list.
Right.
And they're only allotted so many codes to give out.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you're trying to fight your way up that ladder by building good rapport with
Right.
PR people, and it's a whole behind the scenes thing. It's not fun. It's not super duper fun.
Yeah, I did play a little more since I wrote the review for the website.
Mm-hmm.
So I've played all of the new content now.
Mm-hmm.
And at first glimpse it was just ridiculously
So
difficult.
you said in the reviews that it was really hard.
And it is much more difficult than the base game.
Mm-hmm.
But after, playing with it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely doable. The most obnoxious part is because there's 6 new areas, and each one can only be played as one transformation. So it's basically just an expert challenge of, did you master this form?
Okay.
And the one for Mouse Man is the most bullshit, just pain in the ass in the game, because
Yeah.
the gimmick for Mouse Man is that he can cling to walls and ceilings of certain types of blocks.
Okay.
So, in his area, first you have a monster gauntlet of really difficult enemies that are way up at the top of the screen dropping shit at you. So, you can use your arrow sub weapon to try to hit them and pick them off, and that's not a problem.
Right.
And then after that is a precision platforming area with tiny little blocks that you have to land on and quickly adhere to.
So it's basically Super Meat Boy.
It's not that hard.
Okay.
And if you fail, it's not like it's an instant death. You just fall back to the previous area with the gauntlet and have to run through that and get back to it. And it's a giant pain in the ass. And once you get through that, the rest of it's fine. And it's still something I highly recommend, and that's all optional. Obviously.
I'm very especially after, because I was kind of hyped for the game. I was like, this will be a fun little tide me over for a few days before Mario Kart 8 Deluxe consumes my life.
Right.
And then I read your review and I was like, oh shit, this is like the real deal. This is a thing now.
And it is a short game. I mean, it was always a short game, and it was always a game that you could beat in 3-4 hours if you could sit down and play it. But it's still absolutely worthwhile. I can't recommend it enough.
Mm-hmm.
I also went ahead and picked up the Disney Afternoon Collection. Just
how is it?
It's
because
good.
Frank Cifaldi was tweeting some pretty awesome shit about it.
Well,
Frank Cifaldi, our secret boyfriend.
Yeah, our patron saint, Frank Cifaldi.
Every week we're like, well, Frank Cifaldi.
Yeah,
he's my husbando.
Yeah, between him and what was the guy that used to do the Room of Doom?
I have no idea what that is.
In Tips and Tricks magazine back in the day.
I didn't read Tips and Tricks.
Oh man, you should have, because it talked about game collecting before game collecting was a
I read
thing.
Nintendo Power and the last page of Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Yeah. Back in the day, Tips and Tricks always did Room of Doom in the back pages. And I can't remember his name all of a sudden, and it's killing me.
I know you're saying Room of Doom, but it sounds like you're trying to tell me about the new Roomba model.
the Roomba Doom.
The Roomba Doom.
No, it was shit, I can't think of his name all of a sudden. I'm gonna look it up here in a second. But anyway, it was the last page or first page, one of the pages. Tips and Tricks always did Room of Doom, and it was this dude who was a game collector before game collecting was a thing. This was late 90s during the PS1 era,
right?
And he would allow people to write in.
This is when everyone assumed NES games and shit would just be flooding the market forever and always.
Yeah. And he would allow people to send in pictures of their Rooms of Doom, and it would just be pictures of full walls of NES games or Atari games or in television games.
I have 927 copies of Beat 'em and Eat 'em, all complete in box.
Right. But you would get to see, like, now we have the game collecting subreddit,
right,
where people show off their ludicrous collections.
Yeah.
And that was...
that they always got for $1 at a garage sale.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I got this for free at Goodwill.
I just started collecting yesterday. How am I doing? With like 12 rooms full of sealed in 64 games.
Yeah. I paid $4 for $10 million in cash at a garage sale.
Right. But yeah, it was that before that became a thing.
Right.
So it was whoever that guy is, I can't think of his name, but him and Frank Cifaldi, in my mind, are the patron saints of collectors and of preservation.
Right.
So I will always go back to those two as my fallback. Where if ever I'm like, I don't know about it, well, they said it was okay. Oh, well, then it's okay.
Well,
now.
if Frank Cifaldi said it, then
then
shut
naturally.
up. Anyway,
it's a good collection. I think.
We were talking about Disney after Noon. I was like, we were on something, but forget it.
Yeah, we had. I think years ago now, I had talked about the Mega Man Legacy Collection.
Yeah.
And at the time, I gave it a fairly mediocre review.
Because, I mean, you said the same thing that every other reviewer said. It's just Mega Man 1 through 6.
Yeah.
They're presented very accurately, but it's
beautifully well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like bonus gallery content information.
I mean, it's reference quality emulation, but that's all it is.
Yeah, and it's excellent as far as emulation goes. But with Mega Man Legacy Collection, we could compare it to Mega Man Anniversary Collection.
Right.
Which was enhanced in many ways. And it included more games. So therefore, it felt like a weaker production.
Right. Which again, and we talked about it at the time, I remember, because the whole thing was, this is reference quality Mega Man. Yes, it is, but that's not enticing as a product.
Right. Whereas this doesn't have something coming before it.
Right.
And it is excellent quality emulation. They added in some achievements, I guess.
Rewind function, stuff
there
like
is
that.
the rewind function, is save states, as well as boss rush and time attack modes. So there is some extra stuff there.
Right.
And there's also all the gallery and the reference material.
Which I didn't know this. Frank Cifaldi tweeted this. They sourced the original art for the covers, the original box art,
recreated them from scratch.
And then recreated from that's so impressive to me. That right there is one of those touches that no one would ever notice, ever. But they took the time, and that means a lot.
But it is because it's 6 great games. No, it's like 4 great games and 2 okay games.
Because it's DuckTales 1 and 2 and some other shit.
Yeah, it's the DuckTales games. It's Chip and Dale, and technically Tailspin and Darkwing Duck are there.
Yeah.
But it's a bunch of really quality games for $20 with some bonus shit.
Right.
I would give it a thumbs up. I think that it does its job well, and because it doesn't have a previous collection that was enhanced to compare it to,
right,
I think more highly of it. So I think that had there been like some previous collection that did add some bonus shit to the games,
right.
Or if someone had released the same collection a few years ago with DuckTales Remastered included in it, then
or if any of these games were available in any other format anywhere, which is really the issue,
right?
But this was one of those collections that for years, even people like me were saying that'll never happen.
Right.
Oh, that'll never fucking happen. They're never.
And who would have thought Disney would have
okayed
okayed that?
I know and for them to okay calling it the Disney Afternoon Collection and really like making it a throwback, because Disney's not a big throwback company.
No.
They're very much like, no, we retconned that out. Now everything is this now, and you have to forget about this thing from before because now it is this.
Yeah,
and so it's just strange to me that
they would embrace that at all.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was Capcom doing it, and they do have a fantastic relationship with Capcom, and well, I assume because they've done so much of their stuff. But it's really cool that they let it happen.
All the title screens and menus and everything are not identical, and they're not stolen from, but they're absolutely reminiscent of the ads and packaging for the Disney Afternoon cartoon series from back in the 90s. So that was a nice touch too. Everything about it is very nostalgic.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy the games, and if for some reason you don't have copies of those games yet, absolutely pick it up.
Absolutely. Anyway,
though it is funny that it was released on every platform except for the platforms made by the company who made the system which hosted those games in the first place.
Which is the longest way I've ever heard someone say it's not on Switch.
Yeah. Or 3DS.
Or 3DS.
Because Mega Man Legacy Collection was on 3DS.
That's true. I have to feel like it's going to come to Switch eventually, but they haven't said anything.
Well, they haven't said anything about it yet. and who knows how long the license will last.
That's true.
Because you know that this is a limited time thing.
Yeah, and
this will be pulled from the online stores.
This is digital only, right?
So far.
This is one that I would really want to get physical because I feel like it's going to get pulled.
Oh, it absolutely will get pulled.
And, yeah.
I mean,
anyway,
there's already rumblings about DuckTales Remastered getting pulled from digital releases at some point.
I never even played that one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so good.
I'm like weird about the original DuckTales. I'm like hardcore love that game.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where there's no way they could have done it up to my personal standards. You know?
have to play it.
It'd be like if they remade Trog. I'd be like, there's no way you're going to make it as good as the original Trog.
The DuckTales Remastered is excellent. Mm-hmm. It's not the same game, but it borrows so heavily from the original game that it feels like a love letter to it. Also, the fact that they were able to get all the voice actors from the series in their 80s and 90s to come in and record audio for it is just amazing.
It's physical too. Maybe I'll find me a copy for Wii U or something.
And actually the PS4 version you can get pre-owned on Walmart's website, complete case and manual for $6.40.
Damn.
Yeah.
And they got free shipping now.
Yes.
Anyway, last piece of news we didn't cover, and I'm just going to mention it because we talked about it previously, is StarCraft is out for free. You can go download StarCraft for free. Go do it. Everyone go do it.
Officially got launched. Yeah. It does not support Linux anymore.
What? Why?
Well, the old version worked in Wine on Linux, and the new version, because of its upgrades to make it more compatible with newer versions of Windows and macOS.
They broke it.
It broke it in Wine. So
damn. We'll
have to wait for Wine to get fixed, or for it. There will never be a native Linux client ever.
Because that's the reason people don't make native Linux anything is because all of the geeks are going to make it work on Linux anyway. So why do we have to put in the effort to make it? Anyway, this week we're talking about Kid Icarus.
Yes,
I'm very excited to talk about Kid Icarus. Icarus. This is a game that my first Kid Icarus game was Uprising. That was the first one I played. Yeah,
I was sorry.
And I know we have some dissenting opinions about Uprising.
Wait, you started with Uprising and you still were willing to play the others?
I know. I had to spend. It's been a few years. I had to spend some time separating myself from the game.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where playing straight dope. I love Uprising as a game.
Yeah.
The controls are so horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It is such a well-made, beautifully crafted,
well-written,
nostalgic, funny, fantastic, amazing music. The game
with some excellent voice acting.
The game is the absolute complete package. It had decent online multiplayer at the time. It had fun little things to keep coming back every day to get new equipment. It had a perfect grind element. It was the perfect game. And then they put those fucking controls on the front of it.
You know, the worst part of it is, and you'd mentioned before we started recording, it would have been a great twin stick shooter.
Yeah.
On the box, it says it supports the Circle Pad Pro.
Yeah.
And it does.
That lets you use it right-handed mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just the exact same controls, but it just moves the thing from left to right. It's so infuriating.
I did want to put that out there. That is my opinion on Kid Icarus Uprising. It is absolutely the controls in my book. If the controls don't make your hands hurt terribly, then good for you. You have tiny baby monkey hands.
The fact that they had to include a stand with the game to make it more comfortable to play should have been a fucking sign.
The amount of hours I spent hunched over my table, over this little plastic stand,
and
I played it on the original 3DS, not the XL, and it was teeny tiny little.
Yep.
Anyway,
it was the game that pushed me into buying a 3DS. Actually,
all that to say, that was my first Kid Icarus game. So going back to the original Kid Icarus was it was an experience for me. It was one of those games that I've always wanted to play as a big Metroid fan. Anytime you talk about Metroid, it always comes up tangentially. And my first issue was deciding which platform I wanted to play it on. We had to have this big conversation where I was like, well, I could play it on my Wii in 240p on my CRT. But then I want to have save states, and I could play on my NES Classic Edition, and then I would have save states, but I wouldn't have proper scan lines. But if I play on my Raspberry Pi, it's going to have scan lines and save states, but it's not going to be as good of an experience. It was this whole fucking thing.
Yeah, it was the most ridiculous shit.
And
I could, in the time that it took you to decide, I could have driven my NES and copy of the game over and just plugged it in.
But all that to say that eventually, after spending several hours with the 3DS version, which we'll get to at the end of the show, I did eventually end up playing the original NES version on my Raspberry Pi.
Nice.
So that's where I'm coming from. And I cheated like crazy. I cheated through the whole entire game. There's no way I would have beat this game without cheats.
As a kid, I played it so many times with a Game Genie or just using the cheating passwords to either skip to the end or to have unlimited health or whatever.
Yeah.
So when I went back as an adult on the 3DS Classic, which allows you to save your progress at least,
Right.
and actually completed it without any cheats, it gave me such a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where I finally tackled that hill that I always saw as a kid.
Yeah.
And I finally walked over and was like, well, that wasn't really as big as I thought it was.
The cheats I had on were I didn't take damage from enemies, and the hearts, small hearts gave me 5 hearts, and big hearts gave me 20 hearts or something. I upped the amount of hearts, so it was easy. It reduced the grind, and it made it such that I could only get killed by environmental things, falling off pits, lava, things like that.
The Game Genie code I always used as a kid was the one that made it to where you had unlimited feathers. So every time you fell, you would just float back up.
Yeah.
And man, it's such an easier game with that.
I left damage on or I left environmental issues, obstacles on because I didn't want to destroy the platforming of the game, you know.
Also, you wanted to be able to sympathize with everyone else who's ever played it ever.
And I did still want to have because you know, I would still get hit and still flash and still make the noise, so I could still gauge in my head like this mental thing, like, okay, I would have died in that level, you know, just so I can get a gauge for the difficulty of it, you know. But I did also play using my playing with Power Book.
Oh, yeah.
So my info may not be the most efficient because my info is straight out of Nintendo Power. I did it as God intended with my Nintendo Power guide.
Which you know, just to put it in perspective, the game itself came out before Nintendo Power was relevant.
Right.
So there was a couple of years there where we actually just had to kind of
that's awful.
Fumble
this is
through
a very opaque game.
And there was there was a code that real quickly made the rounds and showed up in every gaming magazine early on as they started to appear, which the password was just the number 8 and then all lowercase u's the whole rest of the way. Starts you at level 4 with unlimited health and all the power-ups.
Nice.
Except for you're at level 1 strength.
Oh, God.
So you can just walk right through and nothing can kill you. You can just go straight to Medusa and kill her. But it takes like an hour of shooting her because you're at level 1 strength. And that was how I first finished the game.
Right.
And so I was like, man, how could you ever do that when you actually play through it? So when I eventually played through it, and, you know, I'm at level 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever level strength I ended up at.
Right.
And it takes like 10, 15 hits to kill her. I'm like, well, that was significantly easier.
I do want to, before we dig into the very specific information about the game, which I do have some very specific shit about the game. I want to talk about a little bit of the development. The game came out in 1986, December, and that was it was a disc system game, Famicom disc system, and it supported saving and all that.
Right.
Just like it's in air quotes sister game Metroid did. Yeah. Then when it came out here, it was a password pack game.
Yep.
Which they treated like a feature and put on the front of it.
Well, at the time, passwords were still new.
I guess so.
I mean, Atari games don't have fucking passwords.
Just feels like they're like, yeah, we gimped your game. Guess what? It's a feature, and you're like, well, fuck you.
It's weird when you look at the NES era because games like Kid Icarus and Simon's Quest and Metroid all lost their save system when they made it over to the West, whereas the first 2 Dragon Quest games gained a save system.
Right.
In Japan, you had I don't even remember what they called it. It was like the words of wisdom or something was this like 80 character password in kana to save your progress in an RPG.
Yeah.
Which
insane.
Fortunately we didn't have to deal with that.
I grew up with the Guardian Legend and Battle for Olympus password systems, which those things were it's like reading the Dead Sea Scrolls. Is it an L or an I? I don't know.
I just remember that Lolo 2 took out all the vowels in its password system and replaced them with just like playing suit characters or something, and they didn't even like move them. They just, instead of A was a spade, and then B, C, D, E, club.
It's so easy, guys.
Yeah, and so it was clear what it was supposed to be.
Right.
And I was like, that's weird. Why did they just take out the vowels? And I remember me and my sister looking at it for a while, and then my mom walks in the room. And she's like, "So you can't spell fuck?" Like,
so you can't spell fuck, you little fuckers,
right? And it was a 4-character password, so I was like, man, I gotta try that now.
Yeah. Anyway, this game was produced by Gunpei Yokoi, designed by Yoshio Sakamoto, who you will recognize as very big names in Nintendo. Sakamoto being the head of Metroid for a very long time.
Yeah. And Yokoi designed the system itself.
Being Gunpei Yokoi,
Yeah.
and being amazing as he is.
Yep.
You will see, speaking of Metroid, you will see a lot of comparisons between the two games. Like I said, they are often referred to as sister games. They both feature non-titular protagonists.
Yeah.
Which is
Wait,
the thing.
his name isn't Kid Icarus?
It's not Kid Icarus. In fact, Icarus has fucking nothing to do with the game at all. And it makes no sense that he's called Pit and that the game is called Kid Icarus. It makes no sense.
Wait, her name isn't Metroid?
It's not Metroid, and she can't crawl.
But she is dating Halo.
Right. They're a thing.
They're a thing.
But this is, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with this game's development because I read, and it was co-developed. It was Nintendo R&D, and then it was this company, and it's all caps TOSE. I'm going to pronounce it Tosei. I feel like that's probably wrong because I think Tosei is an animation company, but I'm going to say Tosei. So know that when I say Tosei,
I'm pretty sure it's Tosa or Tosei or whatever.
Is it? Okay. Anyway, they helped develop the game and reportedly developed the entire Game Boy sequel of Myths and Monsters.
Yeah.
I never heard of this developer, and I started
Really?
reading it about them.
Holy shit, they are massive.
Oh my god, I know!
Yeah, Tosa has done like everything.
They've done over 1,100 games. They're a very secretive freelance developer. They intentionally do not reveal anything about their projects. They call themselves a ninja developer in old 2006, I think, Gamasutra interview I dug up. They developed Starfy and basically gave it to Nintendo, I'm sure for a hefty sum. Right. Here's a list of just a handful of reported Nintendo-published games they developed. Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters, Super Princess Peach, all of the Game & Watch Gallery games, non-Nintendo games, Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, World of Final Fantasy, which just came out a couple months ago, Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime, Tetris 2, Fortune Street on the Wii. These guys are like...
And sometimes they're credited.
Yeah.
But not always.
Very rarely, and they don't want to be.
Like, World of Final Fantasy actually has a Tosa logo at the beginning, which is weird. I didn't know they had a logo.
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to, like...
It's like a tree.
Yeah, I'm so used to in the past, just occasionally after you beat the game and you're looking at the credits, there will be a section of the credits that's Tosa Co-Limited. And like, oh, this is a Tosa game.
I mean...
If you ever watch Crontendo, which is a YouTube series, he hates them so much. And every time they come up, he's like, oh, another Tosa game.
Now,
they did make a lot of garbage on the NES, but that's because they made a lot of games on the NES.
Now, I've heard people mention Tosei in reference to the NES. Is this that same Tosei?
Yeah.
Like Tosei, Pony Canyon, Jaleco, Tosei?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. They also made all the Game Boy Color ports of the Dragon Quest games.
Really?
Yeah.
They also made like 5 Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
it is insane that I mean, so I guess I have heard of them then.
Yeah.
I assumed it was a different company.
No, it's them.
But these guys have worked on over 1,000 games. Look them up. Go online. Look it up. Now, granted, all of the lists of games they worked on are alleged. It is people doing independent research to determine this.
A small fraction of their games they actually have credit for.
Right.
And even then, it's usually just like a tiny little copyright blurb or something.
The same
in the
way
credits.
you'll see like Bink Video or Unreal Engine or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but every now and then, like the Game Boy Dragon Quest games and World of Final Fantasy, you'll actually get a Tosa splash screen at the beginning. Which is really weird and uncommon, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Usually only on their better games.
What's interesting is that they don't reveal anything about the games they've worked on. And in reading this interview, go look it up. Just look up Tosei, T-O-S-E, Gamasutra interview. It was really enlightening interview because they were talking about it and they were saying or they were asking them, hey, you're trying to have a U.S. presence, because they have like 6 Tokyo offices, 1 in China, 1 in the U.S., over like 800 employees, and that was years ago. Like they're a massive development
they're
studio.
an outsourcing programming company.
They're huge.
Yeah.
And they were asking them, well, you're coming to the U.S., but you can't reference the games you've worked in your portfolio.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. And a lot of companies forbid us from it, but we don't really like to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how are you marketing yourselves? And they're like, we basically go in and beg them for work. And it's the company is so Japanese. They want no credit. They go in and beg for work. They have these amazing projects they've worked on, some of them that they've completely developed that they refuse to acknowledge.
Right.
And they were saying that they've been like told to leave publishers' offices before. They're like, get out. We've never heard of you. Who the fuck are you?
You would think that there's enough games out there that are definitively theirs, that they do have a copyright logo on, that they could at least show off those.
Yeah, but the whole thing is
But they're just so Japanese that they don't want to.
Yeah. It's just the whole thing is bizarre. Go look them up. It's really super duper interesting, but I'd never heard of them.
Yeah.
And their involvement in Kid Icarus is very like
alleged.
Ephemeral.
Yeah.
It's alleged. Their alleged involvement in Kid Icarus, where they allegedly co-developed it.
Right.
But
Which I wouldn't put it past them.
It's just crazy to read through this list of games and seeing games that I've loved and grown up with and being like, oh, Nintendo didn't make those?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
The amount of influence that they have had on my gaming history is ludicrous. And I have no idea where games would be without Tosa.
Absolutely. It's really, I don't know. It's just bizarre. The whole thing is bizarre. It's like whenever you're learning about like music or something, and you learn about like, oh, these 3 chords that every band plays ever, and you're like, whoa, and you feel like you're in the fucking Da Vinci Code or something. That's what I felt sitting there. I was like, I'm Tom Hanks, like looking up Tosei on Wikipedia,
Now I like to imagine Tom Hanks at home looking up Tosa on Wikipedia.
Oh, I feel like me. Wait, this is a typewriter. Shit.
How did I get here?
Anyway, I just want to mention that because it was insane.
Right.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of Kid Icarus. I broke it down by a few different sections. I want to talk about graphics and sound specifically. For 2 reasons. It's a very, very diverse amount of enemies. Very few or even palette swaps.
Right.
Really just a huge amount of different enemies with different patterns that act differently. You're constantly on your toes in this game.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, look, green turtles and then there's some red turtles.
Right.
Oh, look, a Goomba. Now a flying Goomba. Yeah. Like, every single creature is named. They're different.
Yeah.
They have different patterns. It's insane the amount of creatures they have in this game.
And when you talk to players and fans of the games, they will all have their own special least favorite enemy.
Oh, I've got mine in my list.
Like there's the 2 common ones that everybody hates, which is the Reaper and the Eggplant Wizard.
That's not my most hated.
No, those are just the ones that everybody generally hates.
Right.
But everybody has their one. Everybody has their one personalized least favorite. For me, it's the ones that jump up the screen in the group of 4 that always like to spawn right under me.
Yeah.
Those piss me off.
There is a version of those later on in the game that have some of the most animated monster faces I've ever seen in an NES game.
Right.
The amount of animation that they put in the facial features of some of these enemies, and especially like the Reapers whenever they're freaking out, like the amount of character that these sprites have is mind-blowing.
Right.
They're extremely well designed, and it makes the game very exciting to play,
Absolutely.
because like some of these guys have full-on like anime character faces.
Right.
And it's insane that they crammed this into an NES game.
And also, when you look at Medusa at the end, the level of animation, because she's so massive, is really impressive for an NES game.
Oh, yeah. And then especially even after she dies, and then it goes into a regular human-sized sprite that has multiple frames of animation. Yeah. It's visually, it's impressive.
For such an early NES game, it's incredibly nice looking.
I did also want to mention, Kameidos are basically Metroids.
Yes.
Yeah, so Metroids are in Kid Icarus, just so everyone knows.
They even look like Metroids. I mean, they're not even joking.
The graphics to me, and I'll mention this game a few times throughout this show, but they feel very Zelda 2 in some places.
I can see that.
Some of the brickwork, some of just kind of the floor design and edges of palace design,
Which I believe
and doors
was
and things.
released within a year of Kid Icarus.
Makes me wonder.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they were sharing some art assets.
Yeah, it could be that. It could also just be a byproduct of this is an NES side-scrolling
Right.
pseudo RPG.
Sure.
So it's hard for me to tell if that's a legitimate observation or me just going, look, bricks. Zelda 2 has bricks. Like.
Well, also the enemies being 2 squares tall,
Right.
which is something that not all NES games did, but you do see that in that style.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
As we said, Hip Tanaka did do the music. It is very catchy, and I did
Love the soundtrack.
Little piece of trivia here. I'm not sure where I found it at, so I can't give credit where it's due. But evidently, the Speck Nose character was supposed to look like Hip Tanaka. This game, I saw a picture of Hip Tanaka next to a Speck Nose, and it kind of does look like him. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, they removed the worst ending from the US version of the game.
I did not know that.
And when you beat the game, depending on what ending you get,
Right.
Pit takes a different form next to Palutena. And the worst form that he can take in the Japanese version is he turns into a Speck Nose with feet. and of course, in the episode of Game Center CX where
Arino
plays Kid Icarus, that's the ending he gets. And when he gets it, he's like, "Oh, I finished the game. This is a really weird ending." And then his assistant director of that episode has to say, "Oh, you got the worst possible ending.
You're the worst, and you suck." I again, we're not very musically inclined, so it's hard for me to talk in too much detail about the soundtrack, but I did listen to it after playing the game after the fact in its entirety. Stage 1 is easily the most catchy tune. As soon as that bass line starts in, it's very catchy.
I love the
tune.
entire soundtrack. I have several orchestral remixes of it on my phone at all times.
So riddle me this then. Stage 2 has a little bridge, a little piece of classical music that is very familiar to me in the middle of it, and I cannot place what it's from.
Don't give me lying to you.
And for some reason,
I'm not an expert in classical music.
I want to say, but you know what I'm talking about, right? That little bridge in the middle of Stage 2. For some reason, I want to say it's from Kung Fu Heroes, which I think probably came out after.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But it's just one of those things like Flight of the Bumblebee kind of thing, one of those pieces of very iconic classical music for like 3 seconds in the middle of a totally unique composition, and then it goes away. And then it comes back up, and it's killing me. And I Googled, I couldn't find information.
I use the Skyworld theme as my alarm clock on my phone.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Every morning when I wake up to Skyworld. And
I remember getting to Skyworld and enjoying that music as well.
Love
I mean,
it. That's my favorite song from it.
I think as far as like a level tune, Stage 1 is my favorite. My favorite song is probably the ending theme.
Yeah.
Was just really great. My
least favorite song from it is definitely the dungeon music.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's good, but
it's not very diverse.
Yeah, it's pretty humdrum.
It's a short loop. Maybe Pablo, if you can get a good copy of it, put in some Stage 1 music right here.
Yeah. When they announced Kid Icarus Uprising, and that whole video was just amazing. Like it hit me right in the feels.
Yeah.
Because it starts with Pit flying to the screen and saying, "Sorry to keep you waiting," which was amazing as a long time.
And the game
fan of
itself
the
is extremely nostalgic.
Oh yeah, and then the whole rest of the trailer video plays over a big band remix of the level 1 music from Kid Icarus. The music hit me more than the visuals or the gameplay or anything. When I watched that trailer, it put me immediately in the mood for it. It convinced me to go buy a 3DS just seeing that video.
We could do a whole episode about how I wish Kid Icarus Uprising was the game that it should have been. This is an extremely difficult game. Difficulty-wise, I put it on par with Zelda 2.
Yeah.
It is a very, very hard game.
But it's one of those weird games where it gets easier the further in the game you are.
That's true.
Because you do power up, you do get items, you get... And it starts so brutally difficult at the beginning that it can scare someone off.
Grinding is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
The game has no qualms with removing your hard-earned power-ups
Nope.
through Plutons, which are the little sack-carrying
Mhm.
fuck
Little
you fucking
bullshit
Plutons.
thief assholes.
That is my least favorite
Yeah,
enemy.
it's fair.
Because, yeah, I got turned into an eggplant. I'll go to the place or whatever. Oh, you fucking stole my weapon.
Yeah.
The levels are very long. They have multiple fuck you moments near the final doors. Especially this is mine. This was my big fuck you moment that the game threw to me. At the end of stage 1-3, you're in an area where you're going up to a second platform that has a Reaper on it, and there's no way to jump over him. And the platform below you has infinitely spawning Magoos.
Yeah.
And there's just no fucking way. I don't know how you're supposed to do that without getting hit.
You just take some damage.
And
there's plenty of games, or there's plenty of times in that game where you pretty much have to tank some damage.
Yeah. So it's just one of those moments where it's like, because you know how you'll have like that sliver of health, and you're like, I'm gonna make it. And you get up there, and you're
that
like,
happens.
and you're like, I have to get hit here. There's no. How do you get around that? There's no way to do it.
When I was a kid, and I realized that you could shoot Reapers from underneath on the platform below almost every time they show up. It felt like such a eureka moment.
Oh, fuck you. You can't do that in stage 1-3 because it's a solid platform.
No, I don't
there.
believe in that one.
Okay, I was like, motherfucker.
But almost every time they show up, there is an opportunity for you to shoot them from below.
Yeah.
Or for you to duck and hide from them or something.
Right.
And you can stealth kill almost every Reaper in the game. Not every Reaper, but almost every Reaper. When I realized how you could do that, that was such a moment in my young life that I realized that this game wasn't Contra.
Right.
It wasn't brute force.
There was a new
end.
depth to it.
Yeah. And it completely opened the game. And it was another month or two after that before I realized that you could grind and you could get more health and you could get more strength by grinding. None of that is explained to you in the fucking game.
And I don't even know that you could get could you even get the best ending without doing a new game plus? Because the game, as soon as you finish it, it starts you back with all your power-ups and everything. In one playthrough, can you get the best ending?
I can't.
You because you have to get full strength, 999 hearts, all the items that you have to get anyway.
Right.
And I can't remember the other one or two things, but I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Because I went through the whole game with cheats and I had 3 strength.
It'd be brutal.
Yeah.
I've gotten up to like 5 strength in one playthrough.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I mean, just grinding the hearts would honestly be one of the worst parts, and then not spending them on Water of Life, which you desperately need. The power curve in the game feels a lot like Gradius to me, and there are a lot of comparisons between Kid Icarus and shmups, not just because of the final level being basically a shmup. But it's this gameplay loop of working really hard to build up a set of weapons that make you feel unstoppable, only to have one bad string of enemies pretty much take it all away from you. So you'll be doing great, and then because those Plutons, those guys that steal shit, they don't ever just put one Pluton there.
No,
it's
always
like
4.
9 of them fucking flying across the screen at you.
And maybe you dodge most of them.
Right.
And then that last one.
And
then there's that moment where you're like, do I just reload my save?
Yep. And there's only 3 power-ups. So if they're throwing 3 Plutons at you,
you could be wiped back to square one.
All of your stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you got to hope that there's enough rooms where you can reobtain your power-ups between you and the end of the game.
So
and there's so many of them in World 3 that it's infuriating.
Power curve-wise, it feels a lot like a shmup.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where a lot of those comparisons get drawn. I have a question. How do you use the fucking black marketer and the credit card? I went through the whole game and never even saw a credit card.
You have to buy the credit card.
I never even fucking got it offered to me one time. How does that happen?
If I remember right, you have to buy it in the dungeons.
Okay. I may, because the dungeons, I just went straight shot through to the end every time.
If I remember
would buy the pencil and the torch, and that was it.
You don't even have to buy those if you don't want to.
They were cheap, and I felt complete doing it. Made my life complete.
But if I remember right, you have to buy the credit card in the dungeons, and then once you have the credit card, then the black market opens up the available options to you. It's been so long.
Oh, okay.
Of course, also there was a lot of misinformation when Kid Icarus came out in America.
I can see why.
Yeah, because the game is really...
There's a lot of enemies, there's a lot of items, there's a lot of criteria you have to meet in specific sections, like the last level you have to kill 50
you said it earlier,
guys.
it's just very opaque. It does not tell you anything.
Right.
And of course, we were getting misinformation and information that was correct in Japan
Right.
that is not in America, because there were some minor alterations to the game. Like, I remember somebody telling me that you could yell at the controller to change the prices, which you can in Japan,
Right.
because there's a microphone in the controller.
I didn't know if they had that in the 3DS Classics version, so I yelled
There
at my
is.
3DS. It didn't work when I tried it,
Yeah,
but I
it's
apparently
there.
wasn't a black marketer because I
Right.
know they work.
Yeah, you have to be at the right vendor.
Right.
And even then, they may or may not respond,
Do it,
or
yeah.
they may respond negatively and raise your prices.
Right.
But on the US version, I believe you just stand in the room long enough and then hold up an A on controller 2 or some button combination on controller 2 will do the same effect.
Yeah.
So it was there, but one, it's only on certain vendors, it's only at certain times, and it wasn't even the right command to do it. So
Right.
there was so much that it felt like one of those playground rumor moments that when you finally did, you're like, oh, fuck that. Fuck them for making that a thing.
Right. Let's talk dungeons or fortresses. Is that what they're
Whatever.
called?
I always call them dungeons.
I enjoyed them. They all had a very cool labyrinth design.
The Eggplant Wizard is still an
I was
asshole.
about to say, Eggplant Wizards are basically as frustrating as it gets.
Yeah.
And you can't use your power-ups in the dungeons.
No.
Which it feels like you put all of this effort into buying these power-ups and grinding them out, and then you're in a dungeon with Eggplant Wizards and you can't use your power-ups. And now granted, it would have made the dungeons significantly easier. I can see why they took it out, but it just seems like they should have designed the dungeons to be
And
more
I'll be
accommodating.
honest, as a kid, like I had rented Kid Icarus and then just forgot about it. And then Captain N happened.
Right.
And you had Kid Icarus, and you had the Eggplant Wizard in every episode.
Yep.
And so I had to go back and see all this stuff. And that was what pushed me through to play so much Kid Icarus, is because I wanted to see the Eggplant Wizard, but I was not good enough to get past stage 1-2 for a very long time. So there was a lot of pushing myself to get better just so I could get there. And then I finally get there and I'm like, this guy's an asshole.
Yep. Fuck you, Eggplant Wizard.
Yeah.
What is the deal with eggplants in Japan? I think we've mentioned that before. There have
no
been
idea.
multiple mentions of eggplants in games.
Because there's Ice Climbers and there's Kid Icarus.
Eggplants and what's the other thing?
And also emoji, because that came from Japan and it also has eggplants.
Oh yeah, there are eggplant emoji.
Yeah.
Interesting. Japan, what's your problem with eggplants? Let us know in the comments below.
All of Japan, please respond.
As far as bosses, I did have notes for each one of them. The first boss you fight is Twin Bellows.
Yeah.
I immediately caught him in a pattern. He seemed very easy.
All of the bosses are really easy to get stun locked.
Huge Raw took a freaking ton of hits. That is just straight up a battle of attrition. Even with 7 angels, it took a really long time. I did notice that it was a near identical Hydra boss fight, nearly identical to the Hydra boss fight in Battle of Olympus, a single-headed dragon monster jumping out of water, and also pretty similar to Barba in Zelda 2.
Volvagia.
Yeah, Barba's the
Barba's the American name that they gave to Volvagia.
Yeah, because his name
on
is
the
Volva.
NES. Yeah. Well, no, it's because they didn't know how to translate it, and they're like, well,
They
V kind
translated
of
it to
sounds like
Volva.
B. Yeah. and in Ocarina of Time, they finally gave him his correct name.
Yeah.
But-
Anyway, three very similar, basically Hydra battles.
Yeah.
But with single-headed Hydras coming out of water, very weird.
It was an NES thing.
It was strange,
Yeah.
is it not? It's
Yeah.
just strange that they would go that route with Hydras.
Yeah.
Like just call it something else,
Right.
you know. Which I guess they did. They called it a huge raw and a Barba or whatever.
Yeah.
Pandora is a weird boss fight in that Pandora disappears.
Yeah, it constantly flickers away.
It seems like it'd be a much more difficult boss fight on a shitty TV like what you grew up on.
Yep.
On my TV, it's fucking razor sharp
Yeah.
pixels, so I can see her the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah,
on my 13-inch Emerson that only sometimes displayed green.
Yeah.
That was not a fun boss fight.
Because I was doing
Even
it,
cheating, that was a bullshit boss
like,
fight.
she had a shit ton of health, but even you know, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can still see where you are. You're not hidden. I'm just gonna stand here and wait. Okay, there you are. I'm gonna shoot you some more. Like, it was very easy.
Also, not only are you playing this game in the era of pixel perfect televisions, you're also playing this game in the era of the internet.
It's true.
So you have the advantage of knowing literally everything about the game going into it.
Now, granted, I was reading a Nintendo Power Guide.
Sure. But back in the day, I remember like I had been fighting it for months, and this one kid we knew, the Nintendo Master kid, the kid that mastered the Power Glove and the Wizard that everyone knew.
It's so bad.
Everybody knew
Lucas.
that one kid, the Lucas kid of the group. He came over to my house and he was watching me play Kid Icarus, and he's like, "Why aren't you using your hammers?" And I'm like, "Because I don't know what the fuck they do. They're stupid weapons, and my bow is better." And he's like, "Free the angels with them." And I'm like, "What?"
You know all those angel statues everywhere?
Yeah. So
it's
finally,
in the manual. You own the manual.
well, I
I've seen
didn't
it.
at the time.
Okay.
I ended up getting my manual years later from a Funko land that was throwing away all their manuals. But no, at the time I didn't have the manual, so I was like, what? And I go in and I free all the angels, and I get to the boss, and suddenly I got like 8 little guys helping me out.
Right.
They all immediately die because they're useless.
Yeah, they basically do nothing.
But it was so amazing.
It's like you want to start their health 40 points lower, then there you go.
But suddenly I knew what the hammers did, and bit by bit I chipped away at the game's ambiguities.
Weird system, yeah.
And suddenly started to get a picture for what the game really was.
Right.
I mean, I'd been playing the game for probably weeks or months before I realized that you could raise your strength level.
Before I was using the guide and cheats, and I was just playing on my 3DS off the cuff.
Yeah.
Whenever I learned that you could buy a barrel and then buy a bunch of Water of Life, I was like,
Yeah.
Let's talk final level. The game basically turns into a full-on shmup with pit equipped with all the items you've been searching for.
Yeah.
It is a very satisfying level. It is nice to get all of these ancient items you've been searching for as you traveled from the underworld all the way to the Sky Palace.
Yeah.
And then you get to use all of them all at once.
Right.
You know, with a mirror shield, another weird, strange line drawn to Zelda, which is interesting. You do have to kill 50 enemies to fight Medusa, which I didn't know.
I had no idea.
I had cheats on, so I was just letting that shit scroll, and I was like, why is nothing happening?
Yeah, for years. It wasn't until I got a good internet connection that I ever learned that one, because I would, play with that cheat code and just not fight things for a while, or just sit in one corner spamming the B button, and then be like, oh, this level takes forever.
Yeah. Medusa is a final boss. A bit disappointing.
Very disappointing. Because there is a place that you can stand and be completely impervious.
It's a little bit down below the door on the far left side. Yeah.
Or just above center, just left of center. You can stand there as well and hit the eye and the snakes as they come out and never get hit by anything.
I was really looking forward to like 2 or 3 different forms or something, and then whenever I killed Medusa and she turned into like the human sprite, I was like, oh, she's gonna start flying around the screen or something.
Yeah, no,
and we talked about earlier, it's a very impressive scene, but it's just a very
gameplay wise, it's really dry.
It's extremely easy.
Well, all the boss fights are kind of underwhelming.
I don't know about that. I mean, again, there's certainly no Zelda boss fights or anything like that, but they have their challenges. Like Hudraw, you can fall in there's the Twin Bellows. One of them you can fall in lava. In Pandora has the little bubbles floating around. Like there's obstacles and there's stuff going on. Yeah, but Medusa, it's like she shoots a beam that you dodge, and then a snake comes out every once in a while. Like
that's true. Medusa is definitely the easiest boss
for sure. And
I would say compared to even Reapers or Eggplant Wizards, I would say that all the bosses are somewhat underwhelming.
Absolutely. I mean, they're certainly not the draw of the game. They're just a thing that is there.
Yeah.
You know, they're an obstacle you overcome. They're not really that exciting. Yeah. They're not exciting in the way that the regular enemies are exciting, which the game's kind of the inverse of most games in that, where usually it's like you're building up to these big boss fights. In this game, the build-up is the fun, which is interesting because it's also one of those games where the grind has to be fun, so it's kind of good that it is built that way.
It was one of the earliest games that I remember where it actually felt like each individual enemy encounter past the first snakes that you see could be an actual challenge.
Right.
And you actually had to plot out like, how many hits am I allowed to take to get through this level?
Right.
Where is the next wine?
It's one of those games where halfway through a level, you'll know I'm not going to complete this level. You'll just know.
Of course, I was also the guy who never bought Water of Life because I wanted to save my hearts for shit that I might need.
Yeah.
So and still to this day, every time I play through the game, I just skip that. I never buy any Water of Life. Never buy a barrel.
God.
I force myself to plot out how many hits I can take to get to that wine, and if I start taking enough hits, I'm just like, fuck it, sacrifice myself. I'll either reload my save or go back to my password or whatever.
Yeah. Let's talk about the 3DS Classic version,
which is the version I most recently replayed.
I would call this the definitive version.
Mm-hmm.
One, it is a much easier version to play.
Yeah.
For just the two things I noticed, being something who's not well versed in Kid Icarus, someone who's more well versed like yourself probably has noticed multiple other things. One, Water of Life chalices persist after entering doors.
Yes,
which is a big deal, because here's the thing: you go up to a door and you want to go in. What they do is they place a Water of Life next to a door. You'll go into a door, complete the challenge, come out with low health, and then get the Water of Life. Yeah. In the NES version, it's just fucking gone.
Yeah, if you leave the screen, it despawns and it never respawns.
Yeah. Another thing that was easier, and this was oddly enough the hardest transition to the NES version, because again, I played 3DS Classics version first and then went NES, is whenever you exit doors, there's about a second pause before you kind of start going.
Right.
And it tripped me up and killed me a couple dozen times at least, because in the 3DS version, you come right out the doors and you're barreling forward. Right. You're just going. In the NES version, there's that pause where you come out a little high and then you stop and you drop on the platform you're on. And it
that actually screwed me up playing the 3DS Classic version
because you weren't used to
it. Yeah.
Other upsides, 3DS Classics version, very cool backgrounds. Oh, yeah. Absolute. So this is one of those games where the background is just black, I think because surely the NES couldn't handle much more going on screen, because they really fill it. And I only hit slow down one time in the game, and it was for like a nanosecond.
There's a couple times where there's sprite flicker, just from too many sprites on the screen, but even then, it doesn't seem to slow down much.
3DS version adds really cool backgrounds that they really do add a lot to the ambiance and to the levels, and they make them feel more like environments instead of just mazes that you're traveling through.
I'd say the most important addition to the 3DS Classic for those of us here in the West is that it restores the save system from the FDS version.
My qualm with it is there are no save states in the 3DS version.
No,
now you've got your saves.
You got your save file, but no
there's
save states.
No save states, which is especially for some of those longer levels. It's really that's rough.
Granted, I believe the game is available on the Wii U Virtual Console.
Right.
I don't know if it's on the 3DS Virtual Console because the 3D Classic is there.
I want to say it is. I really feel like I've seen it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Nintendo basically ignores that they ever had 3DS Classics games ever available ever,
which is unfortunate because the three that I played are all really good. I think it was Kid Icarus, Kirby, and Excitebike.
I've got those, and then Zeno. What is it? It's the Xevious.
Oh,
Xevious. Yeah.
I didn't realize that they had done Xevious.
Xevious is not a good game to begin with, but I have it. I bought it.
I bought it on the GBA NES Classics collection.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I should get all the NES Classics. And then after that first wave of them, I was like, I bought Xevious for Game Boy for $20. I'm going to stop.
Japan got you again.
Yep.
Anyway, 3DS Classic version, I would... It's hard for me to say. I would say it is the definitive version. It is the version to play, except that with no save states, it makes the game nigh impossible for me.
Yeah. I would say that if you're someone who doesn't have the time to put into the massive levels that it has, then yeah, definitely play it on something else. Probably the Wii U, maybe.
Yeah,
just because
a good way.
You know, it does have.
Well, no, because the NES emulator on Wii U is shit.
NES emulator is pretty garbage.
Get the NES version on your 3DS if you're gonna go that route.
Yeah. If it is in fact on there, which I think it is.
I really wish that they I just really wish they would have added save states to that 3DS Classics version, because that would have really absolutely made it the complete package.
Yeah,
and it's a bummer that it doesn't have that. Anyway, final verdict from me. It's definitely a game I'd recommend.
Perfect score, 5 out of 7.
It's perfect 5 out of 7. 3 eggplants out of a tomato. It has a high difficulty curve, but the overall experience kind of falls somewhere between Zelda 2 and Gradius for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd say it's worth the effort to see all the endings, because it's just one of your sprites is a little bit different. But
and you can just go to a Google image search and see them all.
I enjoyed my time with the game. I thought it was a good game.
Yeah, I think that it definitely lives up to its status as a classic of the NES era.
Absolutely.
For a long time, it felt like a forgotten classic, and suddenly when they announced Upright. Actually, I would say when Pit showed up in Smash Brothers,
Yep.
Suddenly it's getting all this love again from Nintendo.
Yep.
And I would not be surprised to see another sequel or successor show up at some point.
No, I don't remember ever seeing sales figures on Uprising, but Kid Icarus was a big deal for a while there.
Yeah.
Uprising came out. He was in Smash. They released those cartoons. They were
3D
releasing
Classic.
those. It was the only game that I'm aware of on 3DS that supported QR codes in any way, shape, or form, which I was so excited for QR codes when they came out.
BS.
Yeah, the AR codes, pardon me. I like played the games all the time. I still think it's just a really fucking cool thing. The new 3DS doesn't even come with the cards.
Nope.
Anyway.
Rant aside.
Kid Icarus, Pit has really re-entered the Nintendo mythos in a big way and seems to have replaced Metroid, so I'm a little pissy about that.
Yeah, I'm not okay with
but,
that. Well,
I might be okay with it if they made a fucking game. It's been a few years.
Yeah. Well, they did Federation Force.
I meant Kid Icarus.
Okay.
We don't talk about Federation Force. We don't talk about any of the most recent Metroid games
Yeah.
around these parts.
Because I was trying to think if Uprising or Other M was more recent, and I think Uprising was just slightly more recent than Other M.
M was
It was like 09, I think.
9,
It's
yeah.
either 09 or 2010.
It was
And I
09,
think
I'm pretty
Uprising
sure.
was 2011.
I thought it was 2011 or 2012. Yeah,
In
right
that
around
area.
there.
So I think Uprising was slightly more recent than Other M, but
Yeah.
either way, they're both franchises that are on Nintendo's back burners at all times.
Yeah, and it's weird to me that Nintendo started pushing Kid Icarus real hard, and people bought it.
Yeah.
Like, Nintendo started pushing Kid Icarus real hard, and then a year or two later started pushing Fire Emblem real hard.
Yeah.
And people ate it up. They were like, yes, we like this. And then they kept going with Fire Emblem and then dropped Kid Icarus.
Yeah, almost complete. Well, Uprising was developed by Sora, by Sakurai's
Right.
company, and then he immediately got dragooned into Smash Brothers again after saying he was never going to do that again.
Yeah.
And he's still pretty much doing support for Smash Brothers. So
They need to let someone else make the fucking game because
Yeah.
he's the one that insisted on the shitty control scheme.
that's true. That's a good point.
God. Yes, I get it. You invented the Smash moves in Smash Brothers, and
Yeah,
it's
it's so
innovative
great.
and blah, 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 blah. Listen, the controls suck in Kid Icarus
They
Uprising.
really, really do.
I'm still going to go play it anyway.
Yeah.
Now that I've been talking about it,
Right.
it's just such,
I
God,
want to replay it. It's a really good game.
I know. I just
If
wish,
only I could grow a third hand
I know.
to play that game, that'd be so great.
It's like the feeling of like eating a really good, like you've been like looking forward to like this meal all week, and you finally sit down, you eat it, and it's just fucking amazing. You're just gonna fall out of your damn chair because it's so good. But the whole time you're eating it, someone's punching you in the back of the head really hard.
It's like, we're going to give you the greatest hamburger of your life, but you have to sit in this chair made of gravel.
Yeah, it's just infuriating. It's infuriating in a way that only something that was almost perfect could be.
Yeah.
And so easily could have been.
Such a shame.
Anyway, that's Kid Icarus. I think it's a good game. You should play it. If you're hardcore, unlike me, then you could play 3DS Classics versions and get your cool backgrounds as a reward.
Or you can play the actual cartridge.
Or you play the actual cartridge. If you're a big dumb wimp, then play the cartridge with cheats and save states like I did. That's the best way.
But last I checked, it's not even an expensive NES cart.
I don't believe so.
It's like maybe $15-$20 if that.
Yeah, I don't think it's one that's ever been super expensive.
Yeah, I mean, there was a brief period of time back when the NES was still current that I remember its price ballooned at Funcoland and various used game stores.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but there was a brief period of
They
time
probably stopped printing it or something.
right
or
after Captain N started. Its price went up. And then when the NES died, it went back down and it's never gone back up.
Inflation a kiss.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're done. As always, thank you for listening. Please do go check out our website at retrowarriors.net, where you can read Saturn's most recent article about Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap, which came out on April 18th.
And then buy that game.
And then buy that game subsequently. You can also go find us on Patreon at patreon.com/retrowarriors, where you can get really cool things like our spin-off show Classic Corner and all kinds of fun goodies and different tiers and all sorts of cool stuff like that and things. So please go do that. Anyway, we'll be back next week with Trog. An hour and a half. Trog. That's all we're going to do is talk about Trog.
Yay.
It's not going to be Trog.
No.
I wish it was Trog.
God damn it.
Anyway, we'll be back next week. And as always, let us clean
Let us clean together, Kiss.